Russian President Vladimir Putin maintains that the invasion of Ukraine will, without a doubt, achieve its noble objectives. He also says the war was inevitable to protect the people in separatist regions in the east. Now, that is where Russia is massing troops, part of an anticipated onslaught that's likely to include the city of Mariupol, where reports of the use of chemical weapons are being investigated. We'll be live to Ukraine and Latvia in just a moment, but first, the latest in the besieged city, Mariupol.
The Battle of Mariupol reaching a decisive phase as Russian troops aim to take control of the besieged southern port city. Ukrainian forces are said to be surrounded and blocked. And while the commander-in-chief insists defenders of the city are holding out, there is no doubting the urgency for additional weapons needed to keep resisting Russia's siege.
На жаль, ми не отримуємо стільки, скільки необхідно, щоб швидше закінчити цю війну, щоб повністю знищити ворога на нашій землі і щоб виконати ті завдання, які для кожної нашої людини є очевидними. Зокрема, щоб деблокувати Маріуполь. Якби ми отримали літаки і достатню кількість важкої бронетехніки, необхідну артилерію, ми б могли це зробити.
Ukrainian troops are holed up in the industrial district of Azovstal. Should Russia seize the area, they will be in full control of Mariupol, the bridge between Russian-held areas to the west and east. Meanwhile, Ukrainian officials are checking unverified reports of the use of chemical weapons by Russia. Moscow-backed forces have denied the allegations. UK officials have also not yet been able to verify the reports, but say their use will signal a red line.
If they are used, people will be held to account. I think it's useful to maintain some ambiguity, Kay, over exactly what the response would be. But let's be clear, if they are used at all, then President Putin should know that all possible options are on the table in terms of how the West might respond.
Some 100,000 civilians remain trapped in Mariupol. Residents are being given routes to leave, but only by private cars. Fighting in eastern Ukraine is also expected to intensify as Moscow bolsters its military in the region. Russia is believed to be trying to connect occupied Crimea with Moscow-backed separatist territories Donetsk and Luhansk. Moscow has been repositioning its forces near the Donbas region since withdrawing its troops from the west.
And for more, Laura Mekin-Ishua joins us live from Riga, Latvia. Laura, we just heard allegations of the use of chemical weapons, also allegations of rape, both of which Russia has denied.
Yes, exactly. Consistently denying that Russian troops have been involved in that kind of behaviour. The Defence Ministry of Russia saying that actually it's the United States that's encouraging and leading Ukraine to sow what it's calling false allegations against Russian troops. And on the sexual assault and rape situation and those claims that are coming out from civilians in Ukraine, the UN's deputy ambassador, Russia's deputy ambassador that is, accused Western allies of having what he called a clear intention to present Russian soldiers as monks and rapists. But of course, there will have to be independent investigations into both of those situations, whether the chemical weapons or munitions have been used in Mariupol and also whether people have been subjected to sexual violence in conflict. That, of course, is one of the Western sort of spheres' real focuses of late, trying to prevent sexual violence in conflict, full stop. And it is a red line for many nations. So there will be plenty of investigations ongoing, but Russia saying that they are not involved in this. This is all false.
Meanwhile, Russian President Vladimir Putin saying the invasion of Ukraine will, in his words, undoubtedly achieve what he called noble objectives. Mr. Putin clearly has his own version of events in Ukraine. What might that version be?
Well, yes, exactly. And he's given a press conference, the first since the start of this invasion. And in it, he said that troops were acting efficiently, effectively. They were acting nobly as well. And actually, that the point of this special military operation, as he calls it, is to try to protect people living in Donbass, try to prevent what he called genocide. That, of course, is not what the people in Ukraine are saying and what NATO has called an unprovoked invasion. But he has pretty much put forward this view that it's to protect Russia. And in this press conference, he seemed fairly confident, at least on the surface, that his goals will be achieved.
Вот это очевидная вещь. Это было неизбежно. Вопрос был только во времени. И то, что мы делаем, помогая людям, спасая их от нацизма, с одной стороны, а с другой стороны, предпринимая меры обеспечения безопасности самой России, очевидно, что другого выбора у нас не было. Это правильный шаг. И то, что цели будут достигнуты, нет никаких сомнений.
Now, of course, that is President Putin's perspective, one that he is impressing upon the Russian people, of course. And we've heard from Ukraine's President Vladimir Zelensky that troops there are fighting to try to protect their land. Russia has not perhaps gained as much of that area as it had hoped. And now it's up to Western officials to establish what exactly is going on the ground there in terms of prospective war crimes, potentially, and assaults, and work out what the next steps might be.
Well, thanks for that, Laura. Laura Mekin-Ishwood in Riga, Latvia.
Philip Crowther joins us live now from Lviv. Philip, there are reports that battles have been raging all day in the city of Donetsk. Are Ukrainian forces managing to repulse those Russian attacks, and to what extent are they seeing success?
Well, look, this is a battle that is ongoing on many fronts, but the actual Russian offensive in the Donbass region is believed, at least by the Pentagon, to only just to be ramping up, essentially, that it is being prepared and that it is not yet underway entirely. But still, the Ukrainian army is already and has been preparing for this offensive by the Russian military from all directions in the Donbass region, of course, with the exception of the west, where Ukrainian forces already have control, of course. Now, there is a significant Ukrainian troop presence there already because there has been a war in the Donbass region since the year 2014, and the Ukrainian forces are defending that line of control or line of contact that they've had for 8 years with Russian-backed separatists. Now, all of that area that Russian-backed separatists have had for 8 years is essentially now being held by Russian forces, and they, of course, have been able to advance in the south toward Mariupol without taking it entirely, and in the north of the Donbass area as well, putting the cities essentially in the middle of that area, the likes of Kramatorsk and Sloviansk, very much at danger. And that is why there are all these evacuation efforts going on right now, by bus, by private vehicles, by train as well. Now, what we're seeing is an increase in the Russian troops, of course, moving in that direction. There's that convoy of armored Russian vehicles that is moving toward the town of Izum. That's from the northern part of Donbass past the city of Kharkiv. But we're also seeing an increase in missile attacks on those cities, either where there is a battle already ongoing between Russian and Ukrainian forces, or those where Russian forces are not yet there on the ground. And by the way, I should also mention that this part of Ukraine is still being hit. Occasionally, there was a missile strike last night in a town only 3.5 hours drive from here. This was on an infrastructure facility, say the Ukrainians. The Russians say it was an ammunition depot.
Those attacks continue, Philip, and one of them, Ukraine at least, believes that it may have been a chemical weapon. They're trying to verify if it was so. Other countries are trying to find out as well. Any use of such a weapon would mark a new stage in this war. Is there any evidence specifically, though, Philip, that such an attack was made, and also have any casualties emerged?
What there is right now is just that one claim, essentially, from one side, and that is the Azov battalion. This is a Ukrainian unit that is currently still defending a part of Mariupol. They say that yesterday a drone dropped a poisonous substance on them and on civilians. They've since put out a video as well where they themselves interview those that they say were hit by that substance and what happened to them. All of this is impossible to independently verify, I'm afraid. Journalists on the ground are few and far between. It is simply too dangerous right now to be in Mariupol, and specifically in that area that is still being defended by those Ukrainian troops. Essentially, almost all of Mariupol is now under Russian control, with just that one small part. So impossible to verify right now. Everybody's taking this very seriously, as of course they would and should. But we can't say right now whether there was indeed a chemical weapons attack in Ukraine last night or not. The city of Mariupol, by the way, we heard from the mayor of the city speaking to the Associated Press in an interview. He says that over 10,000 civilians have died there already. He says that that number could go up to over 20,000 altogether.
More desperate days ahead for Mariupol. Philip, thank you for that update. Philip Crowther there in Lviv.